Right, the Miami LeBron James episode, baby. Shout out Drizzy.
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 6 of the Former Athletes podcast. I said it's 6. We made it, boys. We made it.
That's right.
True. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6.
Okay. Let him have his moment. He can have his moment.
Hey, any reference to LeBron, we're cool with on this podcast, so it is what it is.
Absolutely.
What do we call it? Is this going to be the LeBron James episode then?
That's right, the Miami LeBron James episode, baby. Shout out Drizzy.
And unfortunately, on this episode, we are not talking about any basketball, I don't think.
Nah, not directly at least.
Probably not. I think it's kind of dead in the NBA season at this point. We're really just waiting till like the last stretch of the season, and then maybe it'll get going for playoffs, and we'll see how everything goes. But we're heating up with some MLB. Apparently, soccer's got some shit going on too that we're gonna hear a little bit about from Durner, but we'll talk about that later on. We got some NFL free agency. Let's get into it. Start off introducing the boys. I'm your host, Cam. What up? What up? To the right, we got Durner. What up, Durner?
Hey, guys.
I like it. Down bottom, we got Nick. What up, Nick?
Hello, everyone.
All right, let's see what Jonathan brings. What's up, Jonathan?
Ooh.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lack of commitment with the ooh right there. You want to run that back? You want to run that back real quick? Hey, and let's introduce Jonathan. What up, Jonathan?
Ooh.
Oh, I don't know. I got any better.
All right. Good thing there's an episode 7. Good thing there's an episode
Always
7.
another chance.
Let's go ahead and get this episode started. We're going to start off talking about a quote. Greg Olsen, former tight end of the Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks. I think he's a free agent right now. But he basically came out the other day and said, if I could coach LeBron James, I could turn him into an all-pro wide receiver.
Fact.
LeBron James is already basically the GOAT of the NBA. I mean, it's debatable to some people, but not to all. But, so he is the GOAT in one sport. Could you take the GOAT in one sport and make him an all-pro in a completely different sport? Nick, start us off. What do you think?
Well, look, here's the thing. LeBron is a freak athlete, as are most athletes in professional sports. So if you were able to take all that time and dedication that, say, LeBron has put into basketball, along with that freak, physical build that he's got, yeah, I don't see why not, man. I got a feeling that if we're just talking about the NFL right now, so say all the other sports didn't exist and there was only NFL, there would be a lot of people in the NFL that are not in the NFL anymore. Like, a lot of roster spots would be getting taken by some NBA players, MLB, soccer, Champions League. I hope I'm getting that right. Some NHL players. These freak athletes of other sports that are also, built to play these sports and have super smart minds, because a lot of the game is mental. If they took all that time and dedication that they put into whatever sport it may be, the NBA in this case with LeBron, and devoted that to football, hell yeah, I think they could play another sport. The biggest thing for me is I think there's a lot of guys on ends of benches right now making good money that should be happy that there are so many sports for the talent pool to get spread out into. But that's just me.
There is a different mentality though to play football, right? Compared to basketball. I mean, you're talking 16-game sprint, ramming your head into people. So LeBron's a freak athlete, and athletically he'll fit in. But I wonder mentality-wise, is he prepared for that kind of beating he'd have to take going to the NFL? That'd be wild to see.
I mean, I guess the biggest difference is, to my example, which isn't realistic, but if it's all you knew, yeah, of course, there's definitely, if to be a professional athlete, there's got to be a certain level of competitiveness that's just ingrained inside of you. So it's if all I know is football and that's what I'm the best at, I'm going to continue like LeBron. He's trying to be the GOAT. Might already be the GOAT in basketball. If you planted him on the football field, I don't think that mentality just goes away. Another person that Greg Olsen like tweeted about, quoted about, was Russell Westbrook, who was also a freak athlete, saying that he could turn him into an all-pro safety. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. Like, all the fast twitch muscle fibers Russell Westbrook has, if somebody throws a deep ball and he's going one-on-one against somebody, here's another thing, and this could be wrong, and fellas, like, let me know. I don't think guys in the NFL really got bounced like that NBA players have. So,
yeah.
You got somebody that's super athletic, like, I think Calvin Johnson was a monster, but he was what, like 6'4", which really isn't that tall NBA-wise, because he was pretty big for the NFL, and he could jump a little bit. Randy Moss is, like, notorious for mossing people going up over top. If you took a lot of these NBA athletes and put them out on a football field, and they did have hands to catch like that, it would be a regular occurrence. Like, these people are freaks.
Off what you're saying is, like, if you look at, like, Allen Iverson, for instance, like,
stud.
High school, he was a dual athlete. He played basketball and football. And football, he was legit.
He was a quarterback.
And he had some, like, running back, but, like, he was legit, like, all-state athlete in football, all-state in basketball as well. So I think kind of, going off with that, there's a prime example right there where I think you have the mentality of an NFL player, but they're also freakish, just athleticism that he has, and put that towards the NBA. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm
following you. I mean, AI was a stud, though. He was, and it was a two-sport athlete, and he used his athleticism from both sports to play. I mean, to, like, transition from one sport to the other. Nick, an argument I have against yours, though, is, like, I don't know how much this matters, but think about an average safety in the NFL is probably more like, I mean, Earl Thomas for the Ravens was 5'9", and you have bigger guys like maybe I think Cam Chancellor, who was like 6'3" for the Seahawks back in the day. Mm-hmm. But it's not like you're seeing many safeties coming out there being, what's Russell Westbrook? He's at least 6'4", 6'5",
I think
right?
he's like 6'6".
Yeah, so you never see a 6'6" safety in the NFL. I mean, and even at that for LeBron, like, it's not often. Gronk is notoriously known as the biggest tight end in the NFL, and I think he's only 6'7". So even to throw LeBron at like 6'8" at tight end or wide receiver, like, that's a big body to put out there, and I think dudes would, like, target him, you know what I mean? Not to say he couldn't do it. It's just, it's not a common occurrence for a 6'8" dude to be playing out there.
Well, this is me putting together what I think is simple math. If I'm 6'9" and that athletic, I'm playing basketball every single time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, why would I go out, like, to use your quote, like, it's a 16-game sprint, banging your head against other players, when I could go out and hoop, which is, I mean, it's a contact sport, but it's not like football. You know what I mean? If I got a chance to make millions do or one or the other, I'm definitely going to go hoop. And I think that's where a lot of guys that are, like, blessed athletically and, like, physically enough to be able to choose one or the other, like to Durner's reference with Allen Iverson, I'm pretty sure he was getting recruited to go to, like, legitimate schools to play quarterback. But if I remember the story correctly, the coach from Georgetown, like, really got to him as like a mentor type guy, and he was like, I want to go play for that man. But say that guy was a football coach, we might have seen Allen Iverson playing football. And I think that high school to college area is probably where we see a lot of these athletes that make that decision. And in college, there's really not too many dual sport athletes, whereas in high school, like most of us, we played more than one sport, and it's very common. Basically, when you're in high school, if you're one of the most athletic kids in your school, you play every sport. You know what I mean? Like, the team needs you. But
hey, shout out John Thompson, longtime Georgetown coach. He's the one you were talking about with AI. Legendary, dude. Legendary.
Yeah,
John Thompson.
And that guy, I mean, he was able to take AI, who I think it was like a 30 for 30 or something like that, where he was a bit of a problem child, and he was like, we're going to take this seriously. We're going to hoop now. And we saw the long, like, very notable career that Allen Iverson had. Yeah. But to say that, I mean, maybe it doesn't happen in football, right? Like, I think a very recent example is Kyler Murray. I kind of thought he was crazy when he decided to go to the NFL when he got drafted like 4th or 5th in the MLB draft. Because I think baseball is, like, way safer money. But he's gifted enough to do both. And the fact that now he's dedicating literally all of his time to football, we're going to see that benefit come out. And there's some guys that do that, and it never really pans out for them, where it's like, oh, shit, maybe I should have played baseball. But if he might have gone to baseball, and that might not have panned out. So you never really know, but I think when you got guys that are this gifted, this skilled, when their job is to do said sport, eat, breathe, sleep, that sport, I think a lot of them would be able to be super successful. And the last point I'll say, and then I'll pass it over so I don't be rambling this whole time.
It's all good, dog.
But if Russell Westbrook was out there as a safety, he's gobbling up all these receivers because he is 6'6", I think. That's just my opinion. Because he's going up with guys. Typically, the receivers are the bigger of the matchup. And now all of a sudden, the safety's just got 4 inches and a 16-inch vert over top of you. 16 additional inches. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's only jumping a foot and a half off the ground.
Hey, check this out though. So you brought up Kyler Murray, though, right? Baseball, football. Like, yeah, physically, so you're gonna play football, you're gonna get beat up, and like, man, the longevity probably not there. But in football, if you're good enough, usually they start signing like extensions. Like for a number 1 overall pick quarterback who plays well, he'll get a $150 million extension in his 4th year, possibly, if not $200 million by the time he gets there. Like for baseball, he would have had to go through the whole minor league system. He would have had to then play on his rookie contract, which I think in baseball, he might have had to play like 6 years. Yeah. And then he could have cashed out at like 300, 400 million if he was that top tier dude. But you're talking like 10 years to get paid. In the NFL, hey, you can get paid 200 million within 5 years.
True.
And I think to that point, I was going to say, I think to that point, all athletes for the most part, like I imagine they're super, super competitive. But you definitely made a good point earlier about these are 2 different sports, right? Like, could LeBron play in both of them? Yes. But there's a big difference in 2. Like, basketball is more like, I would say is more like jazz, or like NFL is more like rock and roll, where like you're going, there's a big difference. So I feel like, to your point, like people could play in like other sports, but like I think it's just like that mentality that you have around the game. Like Kyler Murray was probably like, like safest thing could be like, baseball, but like that's not who I am. Like I'm gonna go out and like I'm gonna go big and I'm gonna like get a bunch of money. I'm gonna be super famous. I'm gonna win, right? His mentality is probably more shifted towards that sport in general, right? Because if you're good in both, I mean, and I think to Nick's point earlier, like if you are a professional athlete, like if you're gonna be one, you're a freak athlete, right? You're probably gonna choose, in general, I would assume, because we all said we wanted the bag, right? You're probably gonna choose the thing that like allows you to play for as long as possible and get more money. And get exactly, and so I think there's a reason why you see a lot of freak athletes choosing the NBA, like for example, over the NFL. It's because you can play longer, you can get more money, you can be way more successful. So I think honestly, if you were to take the 2 sports, you were to combine all the players and do a redraft, I guarantee you there'd be like way more basketball players than there would be football players, because some of these people are athletes. But they just chose the jazz over the rock and roll. Yeah.
Dude, I tell you. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I think too, kind of. This isn't exactly what you're saying, Jonathan, but we've seen clips of people like OBJ that can, dunk a basketball really easily, and there's talk like, oh, I could have played in the NBA, blah blah blah. I think if you've got it, this is just kudos to the NBA. The NBA also does a much better job of showcasing its players. So if you are a freak athlete and you want to show people like, yo, I'm super athletic, like think about we just had NBA All-Star Weekend. There's a dunk contest, a skills competition, a 3-point contest. Like there's so many ways to show off like how you're an asset to the game. There's nothing like that, at least in my opinion, that even close to rivals like NBA All-Star Weekend with the NFL, like I guess like the Pro Bowl, but nobody gives a shit. You know what I mean?
They have a skills challenge at the Pro Bowl, but like some of the contests are like they literally have a dodgeball tournament and shit like that. So it's not really showing athleticism as much.
Right.
Yeah, you could be the best like sack guy in the NFL, but they're not just going to send people out there for you to destroy, to be like, holy shit, that was a crazy sack. He spun him and power bombed him back to back. Like you don't get a chance to do that kind of stuff in the NFL. Whereas the NBA, if you're a high flyer, you can do some crazy shit and everybody's like, wow, so cool.
That's why all those dudes in the NFL just go to the WWE and like Gronk goes in there. He's like, you know what? I couldn't do it at the skills challenge, but let me suplex this dude on national TV.
Dude.
Honestly.
I think there's got to be some envy there.
I will say a controversial statement, though, real quick. I think that if you were to take a specific sport and take a player from that sport and drop him into any sport, baseball produces the most athletic people. Don't at me in the comments, but if you take a baseball player and you put them in any other situation, they will succeed more than if you take some of these other sports and drop them into multiple sports. Am I making sense? Are we following me here?
I hear what Durner and Jonathan have to say, but I want to make a side note to what you're saying.
Okay.
Baseball also has some non-athletic cats that be playing. You know what I mean? There's some people that are out, pitchers in particular, that it's like, oof, but they can just throw 95.
Yeah, but then they can also go on.
If I can make an addendum to it, I think a professional baseball player has a better chance at succeeding in another sport than that same other sport player does succeeding in baseball. I think that's like impossible. If you haven't been grinding baseball, there's no shot.
Yeah. Nope.
I totally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. I think baseball it requires a lot of technique, and like that's really difficult. Whereas like if you're Giannis, like if you're as tall as Giannis, like all right, like put your arms up, all right, you've just dunked it, congratulations. You know what I mean? Like and that's not to say that basketball is like easier to play than the baseball, but there's a lot of like things that you need to know when you play baseball. So I would agree that it's harder for an athlete to go into baseball than it is for an athlete in baseball to go somewhere else. Absolutely agree. But I will say, absolutely agree with Nick. There are some people whose job it is to only do one thing and one thing well, and those people are probably not the most athletic, right? Like,
okay, here's what I want you to do. Ride out to any city or any park where people are hooping Saturday morning. No, go ahead and go Sunday morning when the old men are out there hooping, right? And just watch a game for about 5 minutes. And whatever dude is draining the most shots, go up, shoot the shit with him, and ask him what sport he played back in the day. And he's going to tell you either basketball or baseball.
That's facts right there.
That's really facts right there.
What we do for content.
Hey, I'm with it. But we can
see that shit on the download, Durner, damn it. Save that shit. Yo, I will say a kudos, and this is a very small sample size, but when I was at college, after baseball practice, we would go to the open gym and we would run that shit. You know what I mean? We weren't playing the college basketball team, but we were playing all the college basketball players that thought they were nice, and we would smoke them. But I think that also has to do with like chemistry, camaraderie. And when you're playing, I think each level that you advance to, you've got to be talented, but you've also got to have like that killer will to want to be good. Like, I don't think there's people that play in college and they're like, ugh. I mean, maybe there are, but sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I was exposed to many people like that, where you're around a lot of people that are trying their hardest to continue on. Like, who wouldn't want to play a professional sport and get paid? That's what you do until they say, oh, you're not good enough yet. And you're like, well, shit, I guess me and my amassed $77 million will just go do something else now. But some people just fall off either, physically, you don't have the skills, or, your mentality wasn't there. When shit got hard, you're like, F it. Like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And to that point, I would like to say, to that point, and to Kim's point earlier about transitioning sports, I think that, once again, there are some sports that are way easier to train. Like, if you're a basketball player, can we just admit that, like, you're probably going to destroy in volleyball? And if you are, you just be sitting there blocking everything, but you have to jump. And, like, if you're a football player, you're probably not going to be all that good at soccer, right? Because you're doing 4 downs and you're done. But imagine being like, hey, like, get linebacker, you got to run around for 90 minutes. Go have fun. Like, you don't get breaks.
Put a linebacker in goal and you give him some gloves. My true. Man is covering 65% of that fucking goal.
That's
just like if you train him, if you train LeBron or let's say even Lamar Jackson, right? You train him for a good year.
Yeah,
he's gonna be a monster.
Lamar Jackson would be a fantastic soccer player. He would be destroying people. He'd be a striker, man. He'd be breaking people's ankles. And just like, ooh.
How would he do an ultimate frisbee?
Okay, so it's actually really funny you bring that up, because every time we had a frisbee tournament, we were like, we were.
Man, I wish I could get Lamar out here.
Well, so exactly, like we were a pretty good team actually, but it was so funny because we have, some freak athletes like, football and basketball. And we're like, man, if we just had one of them, we would just tell them to run into the end zone and just stand there. And we'll just throw a frisbee. And because they're 70 feet, they're just going to jump over everyone and snatch it down. Like, you would instantly win in Ultimate Frisbee if you had a professional athlete. Like, hands down. It would be way too easy. It'd be like a cheat code. Go run over there and just stand there. It'd be like cherry picking, except nobody can do anything to stop it.
Hey, I do want to defend volleyball real quick, though. I will say that I played volleyball with my wife at the beach, like beach volleyball one summer, and I thought I was going to go out there and dominate, and I did really well for playing with some people that were good, and I had never played volleyball before. I was talking all kinds of shit, though, and I get out there, and me and her got smoked because of me every single time.
That is not surprising. You are a former athlete.
If she got me a nice setup, I was trying to spike on somebody. Most of the time, it's hard to jump in the sand. I wasn't really getting that high. But if I would get one every once in a while, it was nice. But, dude, when they would serve to me and I had to do the little bump back, I was just, hey, I'm sorry. Nothing I can do. You hit it at me, you win. That's how it goes.
Bro, I'm sure there's a lot of skill that goes into volleyball. And after what I'm about to say, if there's any volleyball people listening, they're going to be punching air right now. I don't care how good your spike and your serve is. If there's somebody that's 6'9", 6'10", standing like this at the rim, / can just jump so high they can hit the ball straight down, you're not doing anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, Cam, you're talking shit, but you're 5'9". Imagine if you were a foot taller.
What's that person going to do on a
jump in the block are the same height as the dude spiking?
Yeah.
I think there's a volleyball rule where you have to, like, bump it. It has to be the first hit after the serve. If you just got 3 guys standing like this over top the net,
got the wall.
Good luck.
I will say the one position in volleyball where they'd be really bad is libero, because they have to be typically that person's shorter, and it's because they have to be able to receive the ball. Basically, they're the one. You got the blockers, you got the spikers.
Are we discriminating based off height right now in the sport of volleyball? Is that what they?
No, because me was libero in college.
Oh, okay, there you go. So typically, those people can be smaller because it's their job to basically scoop the ball off the ground when someone either didn't get the block or like messed up or basically it's their job to just be there to save the ball and just keep it up in the air. And so typically you don't want those people to be taller because then imagine Giannis trying to dive onto the ground, right? Like it'd be way quicker for me who's like way shorter than him to just So that'd be the only position. But other than that, yeah, you're right. Hands down, like if you just put the tallest centers in the NBA at the net, it's going to be real hard.
And we hope you guys enjoyed volleyball there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, wow. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought, man?
That's
something I would like to see. If they had an NBA volleyball game, that'd be tough.
Hey, before we get off this two-sport athlete thing, if you were mentoring like a kid in high school, would you try to get him, would you be cool with him playing multi-sports, or would you try to get him to focus his attention on one sport? Just real quick, Durner, go. Real quick.
Yeah, I would love to, I would definitely encourage him or her to play another sport. I think every sport has its own disciplines and its own, like going back to what we were talking about, its own mentality, right? Like football has its own mentality, soccer has its own mentality. So I definitely encourage them to play another sport. Also, I'm a goalkeeper coach, so we work on technique a lot, and there's other techniques you can learn from, for instance, like playing lacrosse, right? If you're a lacrosse goalie, you're going to pick up some techniques that, we can easily... No, I agree.
We are in our bag this week. We're talking about so many sports right now.
Durner's dropping 100 right now too.
To answer your fucking question, yes, I would encourage him and her to play another damn sport.
All right.
Hey, look, once you started talking lacrosse, we lost you there. So, Jonathan, go ahead. What do you think on it?
Durner, that's a great take, but if I'm trying to get this person to be famous and successful in a sport, you're sticking with one, and that's the only sport you're playing. If you want to be that athlete, like you're gonna be playing that one. As much as that might suck, you're playing that one sport and that one sport only.
I made a comment earlier that might not be 100% accurate depending on where you're from, because where me, Cam, and Durner went to school, I'll just speak for my school real quick. We had like 20 kids on the football team, so we kind of like it's slim picking. So that's why, a lot of people played every sport. But I do know there's other schools, especially like on the other side of the bridge, like that they're just like from ninth grade, they're like, pick one and good luck. There's not too much bouncing back and forth. I mean, you got to be like really special. And not saying that, if we were at a bigger school, maybe we wouldn't have had an opportunity to do multiple. But I think it really depends on where you're from, what you got to stick to. But I am going to side with Durner and say, especially for a high school age kid or below, try it all, man. Try and see what you like. Because if you're just like, hey, you're going to play soccer, and then they start playing and they're halfway through college and they're like, soccer like that, well, you're kind of screwed, and you blew your youth to have an opportunity playing another sport. Yeah. So I would say try what you like, figure out what it is that you like, and then F the rest of them.
I'll add on to that. I know a lot of players who I grew up with and played soccer only, burnt the fuck out by the time they went to, they were getting recruited to go to college and they were burnt out. They're like, nah, I don't want to go play soccer anymore. I want to go become a car mechanic.
I feel like there was kids like that in baseball too. Like not many of them, but there were some studs. One Nick played in high school with, and he was a stud. And I feel like he could have gone pro, and he basically was just like, "Nah, I don't think so." At least that's what I heard.
Who I don't want to Give me just initials.
TB.
Oh, that was something different. We talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, stud.
Yeah, he was a stud. I was like, man, I feel like that guy could have gone pro. I didn't know if he was burnt out or not, but that's just what it seemed. When he stopped playing, I was like, that dude should have gone pro.
I think that was more injuries than anything.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right, so moving on to our next subject then, before we bore you with all the lacrosse and frisbee talk, we'll bring you back to life with we'll bring you back to life with some NFL free agency. I don't know how much we'll get out of the boys, but let's see what happens. All right, so 12 o'clock Monday at noon, the official tampering period started with the NFL. They can't officially sign free agents till Wednesday, but they're allowed to talk, negotiate contracts, and basically put word to mouth, basically. So opening up, there's a lot of big names out on the market, a lot of Ravens on the market. I wouldn't say anybody too crucial to the Ravens, but there was a couple of guys that were debatable on, do we re-sign them? Do we not re-sign them? We had Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end. We traded him in the middle of the season this year for I think a fifth or a fourth round pick, and he came in a top defensive end in the NFL. Matt Judon, we'd had him for a couple of years. Again, one of the top defensive ends in the NFL. We had wide receiver Chris Moore. We had Des Bryant, another wide receiver, Des Bryant. We had a couple guys. 2 years ago, one big thing that the Ravens did do, though, was they signed a guard, Kevin Zeitler, to replace Marshall Yanda, who is one of the top guards in the NFL for his entire career, basically. Jonathan, what are you killing me over there for?
You'll just have to see the clip again. Durner's doing some crazy stuff while you're talking.
Anyway, back to what I was saying.
Hey, right here, Cam, you and me, baby.
Yeah, I'm just focusing on Nick, not paying attention to Kevin Zeitler. We signed him to replace Yanda. I'm still kind of looking for the Ravens to sign a new wide receiver. They still need some edge help. Nick, what do you think? You think who do you think the Ravens should go after?
Dude, I don't really know who's available like that. If I haven't said it on the podcast before, I love the Ravens. But outside of that, I don't really be following too much football. What I will say, and we've talked about this in the past, is the Ravens definitely need a go-to, number one receiver. No shots at Hollywood. He could grow into that. But at this current moment, or at this current moment in this current system, he's just not looking like that guy. So I guess my question to you is, what potential number one receiver options are out there for my dog? Because we need Lamar to have a go-to guy. Yeah. Lamar's got the juice, baby. We just got to have a good strategy for my dog.
So basically, the number one receiver on the market right now, Galladay, he was with Detroit last year, so you probably don't really know much about him unless you're a big-time NFL fan or you're a Detroit guy in general. He's the number one. I think he's going to be too expensive. I don't think the Ravens would go out and spend money like that, at least at that position. The Ravens don't typically spend huge dollars like that for the number one guy in free agency. There was a guy, Corey Davis, who was on the market. He played with the Titans last year. Kind of a bust, but a middle-of-the-road payday when it comes to, are you going to have to pay him the top dollar? No, but he's not super cheap, and he's a good bargain for your buck, but he's gone, went to the New York Jets. I think he signed a 4 or 5 year contract there. Now, there's a couple other smaller guys we go after. There's Will Fuller from the Texans. I don't really know. He's always hurt. People say he's good. If you watch ESPN, he's one of the top free agents on there, but I haven't really seen it. There's a lot of people hype on him, but I would like to get you as a Ravens fan thought, because in the beginning of this process of the free agency and once the Ravens lost last year, they need to get another receiver. Yep. And I'm thinking, who are the possibilities, right? And in the beginning, I hated this idea. For some reason, I just watched a take today, and I'm starting to come around on the idea of Juju.
Oh. Hey, I mean, okay, here's the thing. Let me just backtrack a little bit before I answer. And to my knowledge, since I've been watching and loving the Ravens, all of our big-name superstar guys are all homegrown guys. We don't typically go out and pay for a name that's been established. So that being said, it would not surprise me if the Ravens are going to sign somebody, it is going to be a more low-key guy that they can get for, a bargain, maybe slightly cheaper than what their skill base should be paying them. But it's kind of like, hey, you come to the Ravens, like, we're going to invest in you, and we're going to allow you to grow into being that guy. Oh, yeah. I think that's more of the Ravens strategy. And in the past, in Ozzie we trust. Now we've got, what's his name? What's the new? Eric DaCosta. Yeah, that's right. Okay, sorry, I was blanking. Those guys do a great job, so shout out to them. To the Juju thing. Juju is a well-known name, and Juju was a bit of a distraction for the Steelers last year. I don't know that that's the type of guy that the Ravens bring in. And I do think Juju is skilled, but is he a number one guy? Because you and me talked about this before, where Juju didn't do so well when he didn't have somebody like Antonio Brown taking most of the attention from him.
Yeah, so we have, and I thought about it because Juju's not really a true number one in my opinion. He's only been in the NFL for 4 years. He has had like a couple of good years, but then his social media thing has taken over. So basically what I had heard, I was watching something on like NFL Live, and they were talking about Juju they were describing him as a receiver and how he's like a big physical receiver who's like tough. He doesn't mind blocking on the inside, which if you watch the games, you get distracted based off his like dancing and his like kind of always smiling and shit. If you watch him play football, he is a tough player. You remember a couple years back, he got like fined because on Monday Night Football, Vontaze Burfict, who's like, I think some people know he's a pretty dirty player. Yeah. He laid Vontaze Burfict out on the field and stood over him and basically was like talking shit over top of him. And everybody was like, because I think he had an illegal hit on another Steelers player. So everybody's like, all right, Juju's kind of a badass. Next thing you know, he's smiling, he's dancing, he's going on TikTok. Everybody thinks he's soft. On the NFL, in the game, he does play a hard-nosed Raven style of football. I would have never said a dude who dances on the logo before the game, at least all last year when he did that. I would have never thought he would come to Baltimore, and I don't want him to come to Baltimore. If they could stop him from like being too much worried about this and not as much focused on football, then if they could get that out of him somehow, I think he would be him as a football player would be an awesome fit in Baltimore. And I don't know what else is out there, what the other options are outside of the draft. And if you can get him on a cheap 1 year deal, that would be a possibility too. I don't think I would sign him to a huge like $20 million a year contract either.
I can see this going one of two ways, because you got to think about, especially with football, we talked about on the podcast before, football is all about your team. It's about like the team brand, not necessarily the individual, even though we are seeing more individuals step out and be superstars and show the personality, blah, blah, blah. The Ravens organization, that football team, is not necessarily ever been about any individual. Like, for as good as Lamar Jackson is, as much as he is like, not this past year, but like the MVP, he's like a highlight reel type guy. There's so many quotes of him talking about like, I'm not worried about that, I just want to win. Like, coach, I'm worried about the team. Like, he's a team first guy. And if you're a Ravens fan, you know they always say play like a Raven. I'm sure there's other teams that say play like a Bengal, play like a Raider. F that though. Play like a Raven, baby. So you take somebody like Juju. Does he conform to that system? Does he come into an organization like the Ravens and he's like, okay, cool, I'm all about the team. I'm gonna put the team first in all these aspects. Or because it's a team like that, and because Juju's a strong personality, he's a younger guy that's grown up with social media, he's already got a social media presence. Does he think to himself, nobody else is doing this, like I could be the Ravens guy? You know what I mean? Because it's not like we've got anybody that's going wild on social media to be that kind of like face of the franchise. We have Lamar, who does it solely because he's very talented, and I think he's like beloved by the media. I don't think he really ever has done anything wrong, you know, that people are like, oh my gosh, why did he say that? Why did he do that? I think he does and says all the right things. You could have somebody like Juju come in and, you know, not saying that he'd be doing it maliciously, but that's just kind of in his personality to Corvette in the middle of the field before playoff games and shit like that. I don't know if he did on playoffs, but you guys get the point that I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I don't know where that balance is, and to be honest, as a Ravens fan, I don't want to find out. I think that we could bring in somebody else that, not that you have to, you know, conform to the system wholly, but it is worthwhile. You look at the Patriots and like the Patriot way over however many years and how successful they were. Like there are systems that it's a reason that it has prevailed for so long and that it works and people buy into it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just don't know who that guy would be in free agency. And I definitely agree with everything. Like I said, I would hope that he could come here. And if they did sign him, that he wouldn't be a big distraction to the team. And if that was the case, then we got a good player. But you never really know. And I don't think the Ravens would take that chance. But I don't know what the other option would be in free agency. And the Ravens are notoriously bad at drafting wide receivers, at least early. I'd say early and always in the draft. They just don't do well with receivers. So to say, hey, let's just not sign any of these receivers, go into the draft, take the best available late in the first round and go from there, I don't know if that's going to help our team next year at least.
Yeah, I mean, they're bad and then also half like unlucky, I'd say. But to go back to one of the first things that you said, and I mean, Durner, Jonathan, you guys can chime in on this too. I think there are receivers out there that would fit in. Like a guy that comes to mind for me is DeAndre Hopkins. I think he goes out, he plays hard, and he leaves it at that. You know what I mean? He's a guy that literally puts it all on the field. I think somebody like that could fit in and, you know, be part of that system. But those types of guys, and I think this is like to all the pro NFL receivers that are listening right now, I think that's a good example. Those guys get gobbled up and you don't lose them unless you're in a shitstorm like the Texans, in which case they just don't know what they're doing. But if a good organization gets a hold of a guy like that, you typically don't see them available or they're well past their prime. Like a guy that two guys that I love for the Ravens were Steve Smith and Anquan Bolden. And I think they were both very talented. They were just as skilled as the next guy, but they were hard-nosed guys. They played hard. They, like you mentioned earlier, they're willing to block. They're, you know, they'll do what the team asks of them. And because of that, they fit in really well. They become really great pieces for us. So
this is some rant.
Do you think that, for instance, like other teams are going out and buying the top 1-2 wide receivers, whereas like because they have potentially, you know, a quarterback who can throw the ball, whereas in years before, right, we've never had a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, right? Hands down, like he's a freak athlete. I don't like Trent Dilfer, no way. Joe Flacco, I love Joe, but he was not on the same level as Lamar Jackson, right? So
there might be some Ravens fans that would argue, not me, but there might be some Ravens fans on the internet that would argue with that. But we'll let that happen later on.
I agree with you. There are some people, but when it comes to Lamar can throw the ball. He can make things happen, and I think like the Ravens haven't signed a top wide receiver because like they don't have a quarterback who can throw accurately. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I think I get what you're trying to say. You're almost trying to say like the system it isn't necessarily built for like a Peyton Manning where you're going to drop back and you're just going to throw the ball 50 times or whatever. That's not really what Lamar's skill set brings.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is like the system before Lamar, right? Like, name a number one like wide receiver that we had besides Anquan Bolden and Steve Smith. Like those were two like
No, he was a tight end, but yeah, we never had a number. We draft wide receivers like shit, so that's why we always like got guys later on in their career. Steve Smith, he was like older, he was mid-30s when we signed him. Same thing with Anquan Bolden. I think when we traded for him, 35, 34, something like that, kind of on the back end of their career. But
yeah, so I mean, like we're picking wide receivers up when they're in their on the back end of their prime. Right, yeah. And they still have skill, but it's not like we're not going to get the production out of them like we would have gotten if we would pick them up immediately. You know what I mean? Like,
or they're big money at that point. They're going to be big money, be expensive too. So you don't get them for the beginning part of their career, then you're paying them a shitload of money. I mean, they're established at that point, but you're paying them a shitload of money when you could have had them on the cheap earlier on in their career.
Yeah, but do you think like, as a system, do we kind of transfer? Do we try that? Do we attempt to sign a big name wide receiver?
No, I mean, as a fan, from a fan's perspective, yeah, I would love to see DeAndre. Like we would have traded for him when they were getting rid of him in Houston, or like Michael Thomas for the Saints, make some type of big splash move. I've heard like little BS rumblings on like, nobody important on Twitter, like Adam Thielen. The Ravens were in talks at one point with the Vikings about Adam Thielen in the middle of the season, and then they've probably called. GMs are always talking to other teams about, hey, is this guy available? Is that guy available? If you were to say, hey, the Ravens traded for Adam Thielen, like come tomorrow, like I'm going to be pumped for it. But it's not really the Ravens' MO, so I doubt they're going to do something like that.
I gotcha.
What I'm surprised about, sorry, I got two things to bring up about free agency, and I'm surprised nobody has talked about this since. The Patriots have been going crazy.
Going ham
for this free agency. Like, I'm surprised we didn't talk about them, right? Like, I brought up this stat. Bill Belichick right now is shelling out $81 million in bonuses and guarantees, and in the past 3 seasons combined, they only brought out $51 million. So, like, this is, like, unheard of. Like, we're talking about, like, this has not been done before from this team.
I saw a number as of like 3 o'clock today, which we're recording on Tuesday. So as of 3 o'clock on Tuesday, they had spent $134 million in total contracts in the first 24 hours of free agency. They've signed, I don't want to, I think like 8 or 10 players, and big name players too.
Yeah, and so take that, and then take that number and compare that to the past 3 seasons, which has been $51 million. Like, they are on a tear right now, just trying to get back at Tom Brady for winning the Super Bowl.
Also, I'm glad you said it, bro.
Yeah, and one thing too, before I switch to Tampa Bay really quick, one thing to note is that this is actually the first year where the cap has gone down since the collective bargaining agreement in 2011. Yeah. So this, on one hand, it's like, is he going for the revenge tour against Tom Brady? Like, yeah, there's probably a good chance. But on the other hand, there's not a lot of teams in the NFL right now who can afford to go out and get these and make these crazy buys, right? Patriots have been pretty, they've been doing a good job of managing their money, and now it's like there is no competition. There's not a lot. So they can afford to go out there and start spending all this money because there's nobody else competing with them.
Bill Belichick was quoted as saying that, they went, when they lost Tom Brady, they went all in for all of those years when it comes to like having his GM cap on, signing players. They kind of sold out to win Super Bowls for all those years that Tom was there. And this last year, they went into the season, Tom left, so you don't have the greatest quarterback of all time anymore, and you have no money, no players left over. He was in a shit year, and he still went 9-7. And
it's pretty impressive.
Now he basically, in a sense of Bill Belichick weird gold mine, he came in with this offseason with a bunch of cap room and a bunch of teams that he didn't have to bid against because all of them couldn't spend money and he had the money to spend. So he basically went out there and handpicked. He got the top 2 tight ends on the free agent market. They're a tight end driven offense. Bill Belichick says, he literally says, build your football team from the middle out. He got 2 tight ends. He got a couple defensive linemen. He got Matt Judon from the Ravens. Yep. He got an outside player and a quarterback. He brought back Cam Newton. The Patriots, they might be something next year. I don't want to get too caught up with the hype, but they might be something.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to bring up too is that the Bucs re-signed their core, So, do we think they're going to be able to run it back for another one, or do you think there's going to be too much competition?
If they run it back, it's made up. It's fake.
Nah, that's cap.
Wait, what's fake?
NFL.
No. Well, okay, that ends all of our NFL free agency talk for today. So we'll move on to the next subject and our last subject. We figured, we would give our beautiful listeners a little bit of the pleasure of hearing some soccer talk today from Durner. I don't personally know shit about soccer. I want to say I don't know if Nick knows anything about soccer. I don't know if Jonathan knows anything about soccer. So for this segment, we're going to turn it over and give you Durner.
And before you leave, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Sorry, Durner. Sorry.
What you got for us?
All good. You're just turning the channel to Durner's Soccer Corner from the.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For real this time.
Yeah, for real. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
No, from across the pond, man. We're getting into the last couple of weeks of the season. I think most leagues have played between 28 and 30 matches. There's roughly 38 to 40 matches in a full season. But yeah, things are starting to heat up, especially in La Liga. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's the Spanish.
Yeah, big La Liga guys. Big La Liga.
And for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, maybe 7, there might be a new La Liga champion besides Barcelona or Real Madrid. Since like 2000, there's only been 4 winners of the division title. Atletico Madrid, 2012, 2013, I think, and Sevilla in like 2001. Every other title's been Barcelona, Real Madrid.
You want to talk about a dynasty? Like we're talking about like
seriously.
Lakers, Celtics. He's like, no, like soccer, like they got that on lock. Like, no, this is a dynasty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty crazy because not even like Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo were at those teams just yet. They were just starting out. But like, it's just crazy to think there's going to be possibly a new champion in La Liga. But what else do we got?
Hey, let me ask you a question about La Liga real quick. So like Messi plays for Barcelona, right? And then Ronaldo used to play for Real Madrid. Now he plays for somebody else. But anyway, who's a star player that plays for Atletico Madrid? Like, how the hell are they at the top of the standing?
Yeah.
Diego Costa, I think. I'm not really sure who their top player is. But he played at Chelsea, and then he went back to Atletico. But I'm not really sure, man. They have a decent squad.
No, big Diego fan. I'm a big fan of that's his name, Diego. Big Diego fan. Yeah.
Big Diego fan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the EPL, I think Man City is going to win another title. Unfortunately, they're up by 14 points. My beloved Man U are in second place. I'm not really liking the coach right now, but it is what it is. He's played like the past like 4 or 5 games. He's played the same starters, give or take, with like 2 players getting subbed, but with no subs.
Gonna ruin their legs.
With no subs, and it's like you're playing fucking 3 matches in a week sometimes, and you're not rotating people.
I feel like that's a punishment almost. Like, imagine being told to like get in there and don't leave until I tell you can, and then they just never get subbed.
Yeah.
We've signed this young kid, Amo Diallo, I think, and he's like 18, 19 years old, and the first match he gets into, he scores.
Oh yeah.
It was a sick goal, and then we have another guy, Donny van Beek from the Netherlands, who he was a stud last year, and he's on the bench.
Who's the most recognizable name on Man? who's somebody I would recognize, or Man City, either one of those names.
Man U?
Yeah. I play FIFA. Anybody?
Paul Pogba. I feel like you guys would like Paul
Oh
Pogba. He's
yeah,
got
I know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that name.
Yeah.
Big Pogba fan. Big Pogba fan.
Yeah.
But no, I guess the main news is Cristiano could be leaving Juventus where he's at now, and he's been there for about 3 years and has not won a Champions League title. Champions League, if for my non-soccer followers, is the biggest European soccer tournament where the top 4 teams from each top tier league, for Italy, Spain, England, top 4 get put into a pool and they get divided up into groups, and they play a big round robin and then a knockout tournament.
That's every year?
Every year, yeah.
Hell yeah. When is that?
What is it?
When is that?
It starts so like playing games start in like July. And then it goes on, the Champions League final is in May.
Dang.
But
It goes from July all the way around to May.
yeah, so European soccer starts in August and then ends in May.
Holy. Hey, I got a question. It might be off topic, but it's what I'm thinking about right now with all this championship talk. Which of these leagues, if any, I could be completely wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I've heard some leagues, like the bottom teams get kicked out, and then I guess there's like a B tier where like the winners of that get bumped up into that league. Is that any of these leagues you're talking about?
Yeah. No, they're it's in all the leagues. So all European leagues, they have, it's like a relegation and promotion system. So for instance, you basically hit it on the head. The bottom 3 teams from each league gets relegated, and then on the, for instance, the EPL, you have the Premier League, and then you have the Championship, and then the Championship, the top 2 teams get promoted, and then the 3rd and 4th place teams actually do a playoff, and whoever wins that playoff, that one team gets promoted as well. And
That'd be like the Orioles sucking so bad that they just dropped them down to play.
Well, dude, with all the American leagues, and I feel like it's not that irregular, like to hear it basically every year where they're like, is the NBA going to expand? Should we add an extra NFL team? I think if we're going to do that type of stuff, I feel that it could be way more interesting and give those bottom feeder team fans something to really root for. If instead of saying, let's take it from a 30-team league to a 32-team league, F that. Let's make it a 20-team league and a 12-team B league. Yeah. And then, the teams that don't make the playoffs, see ya, and the teams that are good in that B league get bumped up. I think that could make it more interesting for us as fans to consume the sport. I think football, soccer is onto something with that.
It's not in America. Well, in America right now, it's difficult in American sports because our feeder systems, right, or our B and C, D league team, leagues,
like our minor leagues.
Yeah, right. Our minor leagues, for instance, like baseball, right? Like NFL doesn't have a minor league, or you know what I mean. Like college technically would be your minor league. Whereas like in Europe, like they don't predominantly look at like universities and colleges for their sports because they have academies that you sign an academy contract at like the age of 8, 9.
God dang.
So like for instance, like Marcus Rashford, he's like 22, 23, plays at Man U. He's been at Man U since he was like 9 or 10.
So, like the previous conversation we had, would you let your kid play one sport and only one sport, or would you let them play multiple sports? Are you saying that in this scenario, it's you are playing this one sport at the age of 8, all the way until you're retired?
True, but you also have to look at the culture of the
Sure.
country, right? So yeah, I think that's a huge part with soccer, and over in Europe, like they don't have American football. They have
Yeah.
basketball, but it's not big as it is in other countries in Europe, right?
Sure.
Like Spain, it's pretty big in Spain, and other countries as well, but it's not as big as it is in America as well.
But even with a sport like basketball over there, they do the same thing, don't they? Like, am I wrong in thinking that Luka was playing for these teams when he was like a teenager type deal?
I think he played for
16.
Barcelona, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah,
Play
like
for
the
Barcelona?
basketball version of it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a not a weird system, but the systems are just completely different. Like our feeder system's college for most of our sports,
Yeah.
if not all. So it's just different in a mindset of like, is a kid going to play soccer or he's going to go play cricket, or
Wow. Imagine being the kid that got stuck with cricket sucking. Croquet.
Be sure to cross out your bingo card here. Make sure we got all these sports on lock right now.
I think in a situation like that, if I can try to Americanize it for a second, if you were going to have a kid at 8 and be like, you're going to play soccer, right? Or you're going to play basketball, whatever the sport is, as that child's parent, I better be playing that sport for like 10 of those years that the kid is playing it. Because, as a kid, you want to imitate your parents and stuff like that. And if you're playing a sport and your parents are busy just working a 9 to 5, one of them sitting in an office, one of them's doing something else, you know what I mean? I think that's where a kid's mind could wander, but I'm Americanizing this once again. But like, if I have a child and I'm out hooping every day and I'm like, you should play basketball, let's put you in a basketball academy, and they can look at me and see that joy that it brings me, then maybe that would be something that they'd want to replicate and imitate for that long. But without that, man, I don't know how a child would be so dedicated to be like, all right, yeah, this is fun.
But that's why these dudes are professionals, though.
That's true, because from the age of 8, they were like, business.
Mind.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like being an 8-year-old in an academy, but it's basically you go to school from about 8 till 1, and then after that you're training, and then you have. It's kind of like
Russian Olympics type shit.
College. It's basically college.
That's wild.
Hey, that is wild, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's it for my soccer corner.
Hey, there we go. Hey, we'll keep you guys updated in the what's going on in La Liga and the English Premier League.
Oh, shit.
We'll see. What's up with Man City, Man United. Say what's up to Atletico Madrid, and we'll keep you updated on the standings as we go. But as for this, we're going to wrap it up here on episode 6 of the Former Athletes podcast, dropping every Wednesday. We might end up moving the time. I'm probably actually going to drop this episode a little bit later, so you're probably watching me more like Wednesday evening. So we'll see if that hits. We'll see if that hits or not. Let us know if you like morning, evenings, but check us out Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesdays, baby! Ow!
Peace.
Thanks for watching Former Athletes. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on social, and we'll see you next week.